Hey, it's Kat at Orion Billing. Before I get into this topic, I'm letting people know that for the first time in a few years, I actually have openings for new clients. My team has expanded, and so depending on the size of the practice, I have room for 1 or 2 clinics right now, and somebody lucky is going to get those spots. And that goes both ways. I love my clients and feel lucky to work with them. We typically work with urgent care, integrative medicine, dermatology, chiropractic, physical therapy. So if you need help or have billing questions, this is a good time to contact me. Today I'm going to talk about a question I see in forums and from providers directly, which is, can I charge a patient less than my contracted rate? For example, your insurance contract, let's say an office visit is billed at $185. But your patient has a high deductible and you want to help them out. Can you just charge them your $100 cash rate instead? The short answer is absolutely not. I recently was asked regarding this, what does our cash rate have to do with our insurance contracts? Why can they tell us what we can or can't do with cash patients? And that answer is because it's in your contracts. When you sign an insurance contract, you agree to maintain a consistent fee schedule. You can't bill Blue Cross one amount and Medicare another, and you can't give an insured patient a lower rate just because you know their deductible is high. Let's say if your charge for that service is $185, then that's the rate you bill out to insurance companies for every insured patient. And here's where people get confused. Let's say you bill that $185 to the insurance company, and the insurance company then allows $120, and that goes to the patient deductible. So the patient owes $120. You might be thinking, well, my cash rate for that same service is only $100. It doesn't matter. Your cash rate has nothing to do with what that patient owes. The insurance company already determined the allowed amount, and that $120 is the patient's contractual responsibility. You can't discount it, you can't waive it because they're having a bad day, you can't write it off because they made a complaint. That $120 has to be collected. On that note, I should mention that providers are required to have one fee schedule. That $185 is your billed charge for everyone. So in reality, you might charge your cash patients $100 for that same service, but that is not a separate fee schedule, and I would be wary of calling it that. It's a time of service discount, and it has to be a documented policy that's applied consistently to all self-pay patients. If a self-pay patient doesn't pay at the time of service, they don't get the self-pay discount. You'd then be billing them the full $185 because that discount only applies at the time of service. Insurance payers expect you to bill your contracted rate every time for every patient. When you don't, you are misrepresenting the transaction, and depending on how it's documented, that can look like fraud and it can get your contract terminated. I know that the intentions are good because you want to help your patients, but the issue is the legal agreement you signed with your insurance payer. There are legitimate ways to help patients who are struggling financially, but selectively charging an insured patient lower than your contracted rate is not one of them. So the compliant way to help patients in financial hardship is to set up a formal hardship discount policy in your practice. You document it clearly and you apply it consistently across all patients who qualify. You need to have documentation showing that the patient qualifies under your policy, which they'll have to provide to you. I may do a separate video on how to properly set up financial hardship policy because there is definitely enough on that topic to cover on its own. I had a provider recently tell me that they just had patients opt out of using their insurance when they had high deductibles. They had actually made up a form for this and were having patients sign it and then charging them cash rates. And I want to mention this here because this is not allowed under most in-network contracts. So if you're contracted with that patient's plan, you are generally required to bill it. I would not assume that this is an option. This was bad advice that this provider got. You have to review the specific contract language first. Remember, your insurance contracts are legally binding agreements, and violating them has real consequences. It isn't something you can casually ignore or work around. I know that for all the providers I've ever spoken to, the intention is good, but you do have to do it within the rules. Sometimes, we hear from the front desk that patients say, well, the other office I went to did this or that for me. And that simple answer is that I don't know the circumstances with that office, but what you're asking me to do would violate our insurance contracts, and I can't risk my business to do that. So to wrap it up, you cannot charge less than your contracted fee schedule when billing insurance. If you want to help patients in need, set up a consistent hardship policy. And that way you protect yourself legally, you stay compliant with your payer contracts, and you still get to help your patients. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you found it helpful. Check the description. I'm going to link some resources there on this topic. And if there's something you're struggling with or something you'd like me to cover, please leave a comment and I'll try to make a video about it. Have a great day.